Startling new details in the assassination attempt on former President Trump from law enforcement text messages obtained exclusively by the New York Times. Those messages reveal that the gunman raised suspicions of a counter sniper who was leaving his shift at 4:25 p.m. That's more than 90 minutes before the shooting, 30 minutes sooner than previously reported. At 5:14, the gunman was photographed, and at 5:38, the officers shared photos they had taken of the shooter to a group chat. By that point, they also knew he had a rangefinder. It would be another 33 minutes after he fired that he was shot and killed. Joining me now, New York Times investigative reporter who helped break that story, David Fahrenthold. Also with us, NBC's Sahil Kapoor on Capitol Hill ahead of a hearing on that shooting tomorrow. David, this report is disturbing and riveting. Walk us through the details and what was going on with law enforcement communication that day.
Well, it is striking how sort of haphazard it all was, both when it happened and how it happened, not over some radio frequency, but over text message, basically. So it starts with 3 snipers from the local police who are in a warehouse building near the rally site. Their job is to sit there and look at the rally site. It's now, as you said, 90 minutes before Trump ends up taking the stage. One of them has to leave. He has to go do another job. As he walks out, he sees kind of the suspicious-looking, stringy-haired kid sitting at a picnic table nearby. He texts the other officers, hey, there's a guy out here who's kind of odd. He saw me walking out with my rifle, so he knows you all are up there. Just be aware. As the afternoon into the evening goes on, more officers from that same local sniper detail see this guy, notice him being weird, see him using the rangefinder. They take a picture of him. They send it to state police, who gives it to Secret Service. It's like a chain of text messages. And basically, by the end of it, the actual warning that this person is out there doing something suspicious doesn't get to everybody in the Secret Service until just a few minutes before the shooting. Then they start to scramble people, but it's too late. The gunman's already on the roof. He's already found a position that the police can't easily reach.
Yeah, you say basically that the shooter was a step ahead of the Secret Service multiple times, even in preparation for the event. He was scoping out beforehand. He was using a drone. Tell us more about that.
Well, he got to the site before the Secret Service did. So Trump announces the rally's happening on July 3rd. On July 7th, Crooks comes out to the site, walks around for 20 minutes. And it's not until the next day that the Secret Service makes its first walk through the site and starts preparing. Now, Crooks, sees something in this site that the Secret Service, for all their training and manpower, miss, which is the potential of that roof, the one we've been talking about so much, as a sniper's nest. It's shielded from 2 of the different sniper teams that would be there. It has a clear shot of the rally stage, and it's sort of hard to see from other places, especially from the officers who are below it. So he then returns to the site a couple more times. He flies a drone over it the day of. He spends a lot of time surveying this site. And you're right, he finds a place, a sort of a hole in the armor. He finds a spot where it's really hard to get to him, but that he can get to Trump. And so what we're seeing throughout these text messages, the Secret Service and the local police being constantly surprised, like, there that guy is again. Where did he go? Sort of trying to stay up with him, not realizing until very, very late in the game sort of the kind of threat he represented.
So, Sahil, tomorrow the Senate will hold a key hearing about the assassination attempt. What do we expect?
Yeah, that's right, Chris. Tomorrow, we expect the Senate to hold a joint oversight hearing between the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Senate Homeland Security Committee. The 2 people slated to testify here are Ronald Rowe, the acting director of the Secret Service, and Paul Abate, the deputy director of the FBI. The chair of the Judiciary Committee is Dick Durbin. Chair of the Homeland Security Committee is Gary Peters, but it will be bipartisan. The ranking members will be there. And this, of course, comes on the heels of a classified briefing from Thursday with the acting U.S. Secret Service director, where senators said it went reasonably well. They learned some new information, but they want that to be made public, some of the things that were classified. The questions we should expect them to ask are primarily, how could the shooter have gotten on that roof with that direct line? Were law enforcement patrolling the place? And specifically, what went wrong? What new protocols, if any, are they implementing to avoid this sort of thing from happening in the future? It comes as we're learning more about the shooter. Last week, we learned that he had a fascination with the JFK assassination in 1963, searched some terms about that. Here's some more of what we're learning. Let's play what Mike McCall, the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said.
What's interesting, Robert, is that he had a detonation device on him and 2 bombs in the car. What his plan was to assassinate the president, create a diversion by blowing up his vehicle on the other side of the property, and then he could escape.
And also today, the House announced a joint bipartisan task force to investigate this shooting. Speaker Mike Johnson and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries put out a joint statement saying this will be comprised of qualified, capable members. The goal is to ensure accountability. Let's take a look at the 7 Republicans on the task force. The chair is going to be Mike Kelly. He represents that district in Butler, Pennsylvania. He has ties to local law enforcement. The Democratic members of the task force, 6 of them, the ranking member or top Democrat will be Jason Crow, a former Army Ranger who served in both the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. He is steeped in intel issues. One of the things that we have been hearing from Democrats and should expect to tomorrow, Chris, including from Dick Durbin, is keep politics out of this. This is not about a back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. Everyone agrees that this sort of thing should never happen again in the future.